The problem with this debate is never was there any discussion as to what is the goal of any form of government to begin with. Because any form of government is only a means to an end, Mr. Speaker. That is why in countries like the Middle East, monarchies are particularly successful because they believe that a king can properly represent the will of the people. That is why in closing government, we will focus on the goal of democracies, especially in the context analysis given by open opposition and open government in today's debate. We will assume both frameworks, and while we think in both frameworks, democracies that involve leaders without term limits will be a successful one, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I have 3 points of contribution coming from closing government. Rebuttals will be integrated. Firstly, why we believe democracies are experiential, Madam Speaker. And as such, we believe that it is only natural for people to experience the harms of their poor voting systems, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, we will talk about the harm of their policy, on why they allow competing legacies, which is necessarily harmful for long-term development policy making, ladies and gentlemen. But thirdly, why we believe this good system will give good leaders a platform to put forward their macroeconomic and other macro perspective policies, ladies and gentlemen, and direct response to opening opposition. Firstly, their argument on abuses and entrenchment of power is not true in the context that OG set up to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, because we are looking at the progression of the nation. Now, the likelihood of this happening is illogical because, you know, we have public education that gives our voters enough education systems to be able to use the democratic process to either oust a bad leader or not. But let's assume that we are working under the framework of bad democracies, ladies and gentlemen. In their context, we believe, ladies and gentlemen, coming from closing government, political maturity is attained by allowing and experiencing the prosperous benefits of a democracy, while at the same time the opportunity cost of voting a bad leader, ladies and gentlemen. That is why the poor decision making of these individuals is something that we have to accept as a nature of poor decision making and choice, ladies and gentlemen, as a right. You cannot say that choices always and absolutely will be good. There's a spectrum of choices that lead you to bad outcomes, ladies and gentlemen. That is why in the Philippines, ladies and gentlemen, when the people thought that they were sick and tired of corruption, they voted someone who has an agenda to eliminate corruption to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. And we've seen him eliminate many, many other corrupt individuals in the legislative, in the Congress, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we believe on closing government. This debate is about assuming a good leader, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who is visionary and has the best projects. What is the form of democracy that can help them achieve this ideal goal, Madam Speaker? And we believe we want to depart from the likelihood of debate as we've already subsumed the harm of opening opposition. Secondly, why do we believe that there's a harm to their policy when you allow competing legacies, ladies and gentlemen? OG merely argued the idea of consistency by example, by showing President Aquino and the limitation to choices. Closing government will tell you that the problem with the term limit, ladies and gentlemen, is that new leaders that take place have their own self-interest, Madam Speaker, which prevents long-term policy development, ladies and gentlemen. Because of these limitations, ladies and gentlemen, instead of continuing policies like, say, for example, improving the economic aspect of things like 100% employment rates, or improving the transportation system that requires not only short-term loans, but long-term maintenance of those transportation systems, what you prevent these leaders from doing, ladies and gentlemen, instead of focusing on these long-term agendas and creating these long-term agendas and vision for the country, we believe that the new legacy that this new leader will take place because of his self-interest prevents us from focusing on those important policies for development. Because you have to understand, countries should take it piecemeal, ladies and gentlemen. We should start from a simple project such as improving 100% employment rates. But the fact that the term limit exists, ladies and gentlemen, allows these leaders to be able to change agendas and to dictate the course of priorities of nations, ladies and gentlemen. So instead of continuing the development and long-term agendas of these countries, what happens as a consequence of self-interest is that it becomes particularly difficult for these leaders to continue those projects. That is why we believe this competing legacy from open opposition is harmful for these nations. But thirdly, why do we believe this is a good system where good leaders can espouse their visions, ladies and gentlemen? And this is a direct response to DLO's argument. DLO said that the these leaders will be entrenched in power and we will no longer accept a leader that has a different ideology, ladies and gentlemen. You have to understand, the reason why this argument is faulty is because the assumption of the argument is we only vote based on the ideology, ladies and gentlemen, which is not true. We vote for a million of other factors. We vote for ideology is one, but we also vote for the personality, the person that will execute the plans, and whether that individual is actually fit to be a leader, ladies and gentlemen. As a consequence, we believe that this argument is untrue because leaders have their own set differentiating factor, even if they have the same ideology, ladies and gentlemen. But we believe, ladies and gentlemen, that this harm is also not absolute, because if people feel the need to depart from this ideology, and if people feel the need to depart from a certain goal, then they will elect a new leader on the government side, ladies and gentlemen. That is why the harm that we will talk about in this debate is not present. Yes.
Don't you think that it's very, very unfair for people to choose between a leader that has been there for so many years versus a fresh leader who might be better than that?
That might be a particularly hard choice to make, ladies and gentlemen, but if people are prepared to take in the new leader because it is a fresh perspective in democracy and government making, we believe that's a choice they will make eventually. Why do we believe that the good president will take the seat of power and will be enabled by the system, ladies and gentlemen? Because a president, notice, all of the other sectors in the country are reporting to that president, ladies and gentlemen. This means when he takes the seat of power, he is able to see every micro and macro aspect of government handling, ladies and gentlemen. What a long-term limit does to that president, ladies and gentlemen, is that it enables him to be able to see every problematic side of that sector and address a certain priority for his term, ladies and gentlemen. And that term will be limited by a certain time limit. That is why it was particularly hard for Obama to raise the United States out of the crisis, ladies and gentlemen, because he had to take 2 presidential elections before he was able to do that. He needed to be able to employ new people, etc., etc. The point is, Mr. Speaker, for us to be able to see long-term development goals for the nation, we need to be able to put good leaders in good systems that works for the country. With that, we're very proud to go to the seminar.
Assume, ladies and gentlemen, that we're always going to have the best decisions, assuming that the leader is going to be there. But they never even try to clarify the quality of decisions that these leaders are, especially, ladies and gentlemen, when we put pressure for them and the idea of re-elections. But in spite of all, we think, ladies and gentlemen, that they were never even able to kill why opposition would still be propagated in that scenario at the end. That is why I'm going to argue. Number one, I'm going to argue why our keeping it. Architect a society, pushing for the motion. Architect a society that discourages opposition. But then second of all, I'm going to argue how term limits help presidents perform better in their position. But before that, let's provide several things coming from the speaker. Because the whole bench cannot argue, believe me, for long-term development. Because essentially, you are always volatile. Especially considering the setup where anyone can argue and anyone can lobby, ladies and gentlemen, for a re-election. And every figure thinking that you're going to have that essentially tells you that you're in a very volatile political situation. So long-term development isn't an assured benefit from both benches. But instead of all, we think, ladies and gentlemen, that their main flaw is they assume that once a democracy is mature, it will always be mature. I really want to live there. We think, ladies and gentlemen, for a moment in time, the Philippines was the symbol of democracy. But look at us now. The point is, as much as economic fluctuations happen, we think that it is also possible that political turmoil would exist. But the thing that, you know what? It's not going to happen because representation exists. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that representation doesn't come from the president. It comes from your congressman. So your problem isn't representation. It's the man, ladies and gentlemen, who balance those types of representation and looks at it on the ground. And then they try to argue, but you know what? The president isn't as important We think, ladies and gentlemen, that long-term development could exist when Trinity is present. In fact, when you look at economic development, it's not about having always long-term decisions. Short-term is as important. It's about the certainty. And anyone can lobby to you at any point in time. Where is certainty there? I can see it. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that type of perfect government number one doesn't exist. But assuming that it's perfect, then we're not anymore going to have a problem. But before I move on, closing.
Madam, if people agree to the long-term goals of that president, he will most probably be elected again. In that instance, if there's an assurance of long-term development from these people, are you willing to agree with our principle?
But that type of scenario also diminishes the credibility that they're also trying to push forward. Because essentially, somebody will hold the power, ladies and gentlemen, and for all I know, as a president, it's not just economic development but all other factors. Say, for example, equity, ladies and gentlemen, and being sustainable in the future. And that I have to argue with things. Number one, I'm going to argue how democracies must be, how we can argue in societies that discourages opposition. We think that opening opposition was right. When they try to know more prices, when they try to nuance into the idea of personality politics and how they're even up. But they never explain to you how it's going to happen in status quo. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that the president holds a lot of power, right? That they can decide which individuals, which sector of society will get tax breaks, for example, or which part of society or the level of tax reforms that you have, or the amount of personal transfers that you're going to have in your status quo. We think that number one, we think that it's a cyclical problem. The longer you are in office, and the harder it is for you to be taken away from that type of position. What's the case? Because the longer that you have the power, ladies and gentlemen, to cater to certain sectors in society, ladies and gentlemen, an idea of self-serving interest could be established in every different sectors within your society. Which means, ladies and gentlemen, that it's particularly harmful. Because now, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a battle of who could better represent you, but who could give you the benefits that you just want, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day. Or perhaps politics, ladies and gentlemen, or what have you at the end of the day. Because it's a simple psychology, ladies and gentlemen, that the longer you know an individual, you're more related to that individual. But it's not just that. We think that it's an individual's ability, ladies and gentlemen, to direct and favor certain groups within that status quo. But furthermore, we think it's more comfortable for these democracies to stick with their presidents. Like, for example, Venezuela, ladies and gentlemen. In this type of situation, the harm is stagnation, ladies and gentlemen, in that type of situation. And we think it's highly problematic. But lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we think that it is thirdly on the argument. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that it harms the perception of other people within your democracy. Because that's not a credible democracy anymore from the international perspective. Because for all we know, ladies and gentlemen, you're doing your kudu within your country. We think, ladies and gentlemen, it's more important than the external perception. Because today, and as a president, you don't do your jobs mostly internal. In fact, it's very external, right? Like representation outside your country. So your credibility in the international arena of what type of democracy you represent is also as important. But in the second argument, we think that term limit allows the president to perform the role better. Because we think that I understand, right? The president has to balance certain things. And he can do a lot of things in status quo that is probably going to be hurtful. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, a whole lot of people would have to be, like informal sectors, ladies and gentlemen, who would have to be removed from their part of office. The point is, the president has to take unpopular decisions, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day. And you can only do that, ladies and gentlemen, if there is nothing at the end of the road. If you're not running after, ladies and gentlemen. Congress represents people, but the president sets the final stamp, ladies and gentlemen. Because ultimately, the president must be the one to take the ultimate hard decision, ladies and gentlemen, which is most relevant. Because all their benefits would not accrue if the president can't make the right decisions, even ever power, ladies and gentlemen, to give him in status quo. Thank you.
the biggest harm that Nicole accused us of in this particular debate is that, well, on your side of the house, you will never have your benefits because there's always re-election. Conversely, on our side of the house, at least we don't have to worry about re-election anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, that's not true. Because in status quo, these presidents can run twice, ladies and gentlemen, and their particular benefit will only accrue at the second time and the last term that they will run. At which point, the only time that they can have all of the development and tough projects that they will want in this debate is what? 5, 6 years? We don't think that you're able to make those tough decisions of creating transportation systems, ladies and gentlemen, train systems within your region in the span of 6 years. That's why we don't think that any benefit actually accrues coming from government side. But the first thing I want to clarify in this debate, and the first issue is, what are term limits really for? Because what you have to realize is that at this point in time, what we are doing with the votes of people is that to some extent, we're limiting them. Now, Clinton told us in this debate that, well, choice is not absolute anyway. But ladies and gentlemen, what you have to realize is that there's always a high threshold before we impose a certain limit on the choice of people. That's why we respect the right to bodily autonomy, and we state that in extension, if we really support the interest of people on the ground level, then you have to trust them to make that decision for themselves, because the main principle of democracy in the very first place is that they're the best arbiters of their situation. Does that high threshold exist in that particular side of the debate? Because the shared argumentation coming from both houses was this: the time limit was necessary to prevent the abuses, because apparently longer time will lead to the mindset that people trust me anyway, that I'm going to create structures, or coming from Nicole, you're going to entrench yourself in different sectors in society. This is particularly unrealistic, ladies and gentlemen, because what you have to realize about presidents is that they're constantly in the spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. We will agree, they're visionaries. People don't come to them, ladies and gentlemen. That's why people demand each and every single time that their policies must be put in place. That's why there's a constant threat of impeachment. That's why there's public scrutiny, ladies and gentlemen. But more importantly, we say that people obviously continuously criticize the government, because it is only by criticizing the government that they're able to achieve their self-interest, ladies and gentlemen. Because obviously, as Dan told you, these presidents want to achieve a point of relevance, ladies and gentlemen. They want to stay relevant in this particular country. That's why we don't think there's a high likelihood of them abusing their power. No, to sit down. But Milky says, well, it is less likely for people to oust this particular president, because the image of presidency is so overpowering, and magically, somehow, this opposition will disappear, ladies and gentlemen. But firstly, we question why that's the case, right? Because look at your notes, ladies and gentlemen. There is no substantiation coming from Milky, merely assertions. But the most that we got coming from opposition side, locally said that, was this: that Nicole said, well, the thing is, psychology is about affinity. If you see a person long enough, then you're going to build a relationship. I don't think that's true. I've seen a lot of people in the debate committee, but sometimes you just don't want to deal with them, right? But secondly, the affinity of people is reliant to the president in terms of the good projects. Because obviously, which citizen will want to stay in affinity with a president who never conducted a good project? Right? Under this logic, no one, as long as they are not ex-presidents, will ever win in elections, ladies and gentlemen. But this happens all the time. Newbies win presidencies, ladies and gentlemen. In our country, Marcos, who was entrenched for more than 20 years in numerous structures, was ousted by people on the ground level, ladies and gentlemen. But lastly, we say that the problem with this argumentation is that it automatically assumes that the new is better than the old. But who is Milky to say to the Filipino people that his choice is better than everybody else's? We don't think that's the point is, reaction is only necessary if the harm was really big to begin with. Because you're going a lot of benefits on our side of the house. For what? A speculative harm that opposition never argues. Western cannot argue that anymore. And opposition
If you value choice so highly, why are you willing to afford it only to mature democracies? Are young democracies any less deserving of this choice?
Wait, that's OG. Because that's where that argumentation was crucial. Because what we told you was that the choice exists democracies are experiential, ladies and gentlemen. So there's also value if people vote the wrong candidate for an amount of time, ladies and gentlemen, because they learn from that lesson. We say that is particularly important for them to make, because it is only by experience that we are truly able to preempt real and tangible harms on the ground level, as opposed to their side of the house, where they're always speculating that people will always make the wrong decision, ladies and gentlemen. But we say that better governance is better on our side of the house, because Dan already told you about long-term development, right? But Nicole said that cannot happen because re-election will happen anyway. At least on their side, there's no fear of non-re-election. I already told you that that's not particularly true on their side of the house. But let's weigh it, right? On their side of the house, you're never going to approve the long-term development because there's always a time limit and the long-term decision cannot be fully actualized. At least on our side of the house, there's still an effort to explain to the people that this is our policy, this is why it's unpopular, but still, it's good for you. But the mutually exclusive benefit is this. We have a time for these presidents to actually enact these policies by the end of the day. So is stagnation true? No, it's not, ladies and gentlemen, because of the constant need to prove yourself, and you think that you're only able to do that on our side of the house. But lastly, what Nicole never responded to coming from that was the importance of the personality of that particular president. Because if it were true that the only basis should be ideologies, then let's implement blind voting in democracies, right? But personalities are important, particularly because the person who sits as president, ladies and gentlemen, is the one who is able to get the macro perspective of everything. Obviously, the DOF reports to him, the DND reports to him, ladies and gentlemen, and we think that this mutually exclusive value of seeing everything, ladies and gentlemen, of seeing everything that happens in your country and reacting accordingly with enough time, ladies and gentlemen, is an exclusive value that you get only from government side. And this is particularly important because the success of your projects is reliant on the time that these presidents have. And with that, we are proud to say that with arrows tied, lions and maroons, well, yeah, they just go away. Thank you.
I'm going to get a little bit personal. When you're in a very comfortable relationship, you tend to not try to do things out and it gets boring. Because the experiential argument that they said that democracies, tend to stick with is right. You'll be afraid to try new things because you're just stuck into that thing, and essentially it'll be hard for you to change how things are. In any democracy, essentially, we don't think it's about electing the best leader, but rather it's about making sure we put a stop to ourselves and we always constantly question and re-question our ideas to develop ideas themselves to be able to advance our society and to understand by opposing opposition. First thing I'll talk about is this. Why should government choose? Number one, they refuse to debate all democracies and limited to isolated examples, for example, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. As a cheap debate, this essentially not apply to most democracies, which should debate be. And we question, how can we tell if a democracy is a mature democracy? Because they say, look, it's about corruption. Well, the United States has a ton of corruption, and we think it's not nature-treated. Cronyism, we have alliance with the United States. The same thing with dynasty, you have two Bush presidents, you have about double thinking. So in that case alone, we're not able to establish properly what's a mature democracy. It's about ramping the trade against how can you then take, right now it's perfectly fine for us to do this third that we don't think to be fair. We think they're messing that way. So that was thank you. Secondly, they said, look, they want stability, and yet they will put recall elections, which means that the president will always be challenged again and again. And the thing is, they make it necessary because on one end, they have to balance out the fact that the president will have no term. So because they have no term limit, they have to put some check and balance to make sure we cannot put a limited power. But we tell you, it becomes very difficult because what happens is the president always has to make popular decisions which will be impossible on the entire side. So we think it's wrong, it's really wrong. We're happy to see the first of world where they put impeachment limits in presidents to make sure to secure the limited term they have there to make sure they're able to do their jobs properly without the constant carrying the press and people against them. Two wishes of debate. The first one is this. What is the value of democracy? One we're open government is not about electing the best leader, but rather the best idea. Because we tell you sit down with you, the best ideas will be stifled when you become too comfortable with the relationship, with the system. Because essentially what will happen, if you feel that one leader might be good, and the one leader keeps getting elected again and again for, say, the next 20 years, essentially, the need for you to question this person will be drastically reduced. Because in that case alone, you're not limiting yourself to explore new ideas. No one's a problem here. In any democracy, you always have two opposing ideas. Maybe the very conservative Republican, the very liberal Democratic Party. And all these things, and all their policies, all these mix of these to ideas. When we have one honorable leader, essentially, the need for it to always question these things without because they know these guys are working. Now we may concede, it may not happen immediately because you will always have people debating. But any democracy has to make sure you will even shut off the possibility of this happening. That's why we have to see this policy in this debate. Closing.
Why is that relationship such a bad choice if you concede that choice of individuals in a democracy is important?
Well, I'm going to talk about these things. We talk about policies and projects. We think very well that the new president will be able, as capable to understand the macro perspective. We think the new president will be the policy and project very good. I'm going to discuss that later on. Moving on. You probably want to destroy the idea of the sugar bowl because essentially what happens was when the full argument with how people can be easily influenced by what is normal and the experiential thing they have because it's perfectly fine. We will vote for this person. They argued for free choice, but yet they said, look, they have this experiential thing, which means to some extent you're not voting because of the idea, but rather you're voting because things just simply worked out without having to, of course, yourself to other things. Essentially what happens when let's say you put a term limit here. Each time a president has to go down, you will have to consider two new candidates. These two new candidates will have new ideas that way. You're able to pick them between them. Now they argue, look, the will of the people will still be the will of the people will still be pursued. We think essentially if the will of the people can still be pursued. Why? Because you can always elect someone from the same party, the same ideology, so like the same thing, which means that the will of the people can be pursued. But here's the thing, we think the will of the people is influenced by how your political structure is. That's why China also thinks that you essentially don't have a very static will of the people. You want the will of the people to be dynamic, and the ideas will always be dynamic. And that's only influenced by the structure. We're forced to question ideas again and again. And we think that's what true democracy is. So in essence, to summarize this first issue, we allow the constant challenge of ideas. On the that side, you will risk being comfortable, sit down, will thank you, and we can never let this happen. Under law, we have to make sure we shut down all possibilities for you to be too comfortable. Sit down, will thank you. Next is this. Will it contribute to national stability? Because the concept of government mentioned this. They will remove term limits and then put new checks to make sure we can always put them right, to make it not as secure as we want. So what happens is it's either you will set term limit, but nothing to question you really know the new legal thing. Or you'll have our side, essentially, where it's limited, but essentially, you can't be questioned during the time. You have a way to see how many pictures you have in that case. Down will tell you. What's the harm here? On their side, these presidents will never be able to make unpopular decisions that are correct. What do I mean by this? For example, raising taxes. For example, allowing an industry to die. For example, going to war. These things that I will tell you are incredibly unpopular. But on their side, because of recall elections, what will happen? People will always be questioning these guys, and we don't let the policy will take you down, will find someone else out there. We think it becomes problematic that way. Under our side, and this is attacking OG, that's why OG can't win the debate. Maybe CG can get third or second, third most likely. But anyway, let me tell you essentially, is that we have to make sure we allow presidents to make unpopular decisions, giving the back of OG's proposal here. The someone said closing government, they said, look, here's this macro perspective. They said because you've been there for quite some time, essentially, you have a better idea of how things work. First thing, why can't the new president have a good perspective of these things? Because when first people run for office, essentially, people will understand. I don't find already. I don't find already. Anyway, here's the thing. We tell you, the new president, before you run for office, essentially, you will always have to say, people advise us to help you out before you run for office. Because when you always hear the president, you will have a clear grasp of the macro perspective. So the macro perspective that they're arguing for is not going to be sacrificed on any side. In fact, what will happen is you have fresher perspectives on these issues and not stagnant ones. That's exactly what the policy is. Let's talk about projects. We usually go and say we have long-term projects. These projects are ran by some people in some other area, say in the department, whatever. For example, policies belong to units like Congress, with a bit more permanent, a bit longer than president, you will have some flexibility. Well, the next question here is, if a project or policy is incredibly popular and incredibly correct, when we think it's in the best interest of the next president to continue these policies and continue these things, which means that what ideas from the previous term will follow through. But what will change is we'll have new inputs of ideas to make sure more other projects in the area. And lastly is this is a big irony. They said, no, it will not happen because people have political agenda and all these things. I thought the previous debate was not picture democracy, they said not. Political agenda and self-interest in politicians happen in the frame outside the debate. They will lose because they have selectively picked the frame and then use other factors which is not included in their frame in political agenda and self-interest. The thing will not happen. It's best to put a limit to these things. Now, we would like to thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy us in the semifinals. Thank you very much.